Today on the podcast, we have, I would say, one of the most poignant topics.
Yes.
I think we've talked about in a long time.
Could be.
Speaking of which, have you thought of the word poignant?
I was to say that's a big word.
I don't know where that came
from.
from.
For being so early in the morning.
I've had 2 cups of coffee.
Okay.
So maybe that has something to do with it.
I'm drinking Coke Zero, so I'm losing brain cells, and you are gaining brain cells.
I'm gaining brains. Poignant is a weird word. Is that a French word? Like there's a G in there. I want to say poignant.
Right.
But it's not.
I don't know. Where's Dylan at?
How do Cajuns say poignant?
We don't.
Say it.
No, we don't.
I want to hear you say that.
Poignant.
Poignant. Poignant.
I'm not the best.
Is it poignant?
Maybe, but I'm not the best judge of how. Nobody asked me how to
what
pronounce
were we
a
talking?
word. I promise you.
So the podcast today is very poignant.
Okay.
It is a critical
What do you
one.
mean by that?
What I mean is this is going to hit home with you in a very profound way.
Okay. Yeah.
It's going to be something that it has ripple effects potentially in your family and your life as a disciple maker, as a believer.
Yeah.
If you listen to what we're saying today, I'm thoroughly convinced. I am known for epic overstatements.
Yeah,
I mean, you can ask my wife. You know, my daughter takes after me. You know, it's the end of the world because I didn't get a Rice Krispie treat.
Right.
I can make it feel that way. So I can make these kinds of statements. But today I actually feel like that is a true statement.
Okay.
We have a profound topic that could revolutionize. It's the one thing that could radically change your home.
Well, and the reason is because it's changing our home. Let's be
right.
honest.
I'm seeing the
we're,
evidence.
Yeah, we're not speaking from a distance or an ivory tower saying we think you could do this, it may work. We're saying this right now is revolutionizing our homes.
It's happening as we speak, as a matter of fact.
In fact, mine happened last night.
And mine happened last Friday morning.
Ooh, wow.
So what is it we're talking about?
Yes.
People may be wondering. Please get to the point. We'll do that in 15 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. We are talking about really discipling your kids.
Yes.
So first of all, if you don't have kids, you still need to listen to this.
Yeah.
Because this is going to apply to you. This is going to be something that I feel like you're going to take, and this is really revolutionary for any discipleship group. But if you think about your kids and how you impact them, and having a 12-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter, there have been many times I thought, man, am I missing it? Am I doing something wrong? No one gives you an instruction manual with kids.
No.
Like you can go to Amazon and look them up. I've found those, what to expect when expecting, what to expect after you're expecting, what to expect the first 5 years. I mean, all the books, you read about a chapter and you think, wow, this doesn't help me at all because, yeah, there's some stuff in here, but they never told me this was going to happen.
That's right.
They never told me this was going to happen. And so there's really no manual for how to raise kids.
Right.
But my fear is, and I think a lot of parents may have this fear, is what happens when my kids, I don't invest in them the way that I want to.
Well, there's even no manual for how to disciple our kids.
There's definitely no manual for
because
that.
Because people are getting excited and saying, hey, I want to disciple my kids, but what do I do? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the one insight, the one practice, the one mindset, in a sense, that we find is going to revolutionize your home, but more importantly, one of the reasons you're not discipling your kids. Okay, so here's the term. Are you ready for it?
Oh boy, I am.
The term is intentionality.
Intentionality.
Okay, I know.
What does that mean?
I know that may be underwhelming, but
wait, let me take another drink of my coffee before you explain that.
Okay, so the reality is the reason you're not discipling your kids consistently. Now, we're not trying to throw lumps of coal on your back and make you feel guilty for not doing that. But the reality is the reason you're not discipling your kids is because you're not intentional. Okay?
Yeah.
You are not a manager of your schedule. Your schedule manages you.
You're talking to me specifically because that feels like that's
well,
true.
That wasn't an attack on you, but you were just in front of me. So, but the reality is, many of you are not being intentional with your schedule. Okay, you're not being intentional with your kids. So let's think of it this way. Okay, in your average lifetime, here's a pop quiz. If you have a child from birth until 18, and really the only time you have to really, I'm going to talk about not being intentional when they get out the home, because you still can be when they're in college and away.
Right.
But you have an 18-year opportunity, okay, to disciple your kids. And let's be honest, when you stand before the Lord, He's not going to ask me or you as pastors, how big was your church? He's not going to ask us, how big did you grow that budget at Long Hollow? How many life groups in the homes, okay? He may later down the road, maybe, but I'm certain of this. He's going to ask every man, you ready for this? How well did you disciple your family? How well did you disciple your home?
Yeah.
And God, I didn't have time is not an excuse.
Yeah.
God, I was too busy will not be an excuse. I'm just telling you right now. God, I tried to run a corporation. You should see the boat I have at the dock. You should see the bank account I have. You should see the house in the hill. Now, he's not going to care about any of that. He'll say, okay, we'll talk about that later. How well did you disciple your family?
Well, and I think he's going to ask every parent that question. And then beyond that, I think as ministers, one of the challenges I find is I'm always involved in ministry because it's my job.
Yeah.
So I think ministry is something as believers Christ commands us to do. We're given. We know that that is our life. But then you have that next layer where you're on a staff at a church and you're also doing it as a vocation, so to speak. And so a lot of people do it as a bivocation, if you will.
Yeah.
Everyone's a bivocational minister, I would say, in some way, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is when you're serving in a church, you almost feel like, okay, these things are going to happen because I'm around the church.
Yeah.
Because I'm bringing my kids with me to work, because I'm going and doing the things I'm doing, it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And the reality is, you just said it a while ago, we've got to be intentional. It's not just going to happen. As a matter of fact, we see the opposite a lot of times with pastors' kids and church staff kids. It's almost like they go down a whole different track.
Well, think of the numbers, and I don't know. I've heard this years ago. I don't know if it's still accurate, but I heard a study one time say 70% of pastors' kids,
Wow.
will walk away from the church after high school and not come back. May come back later in life, but definitely won't come back in their 20s. Okay, so here's the challenge for us. Here's the challenge right out the gate. Don't let your ministry for Jesus outpace your intimacy with Jesus. Okay, so your ministry that you do for Jesus is great, praise God. But remember, being precedes doing.
Yeah.
Okay, character precedes conduct. Okay, so don't let the things you do for Jesus outpace your intimacy with Jesus. And the same goes for your children. Don't let what you do for God outpace your time with your kids. So think of it this way.
Yeah.
From the time your child is born until the time they move out the house at 18.
Which, by the way, that may or may not happen for some. But
Right.
we're just throwing out 18 because that's
18,
general.
yeah.
There's a lot of kids still living.
Some parents are like, please move out the house.
Yeah, the cliche is they're living in the basement.
Okay.
Like, I don't even have a basement. I wish I had a basement.
Right, exactly. But let's just say 18, okay?
18,
because that's when they truly become
That's
an
when
adult.
they're supposed to leave.
Right, supposed
Society says you're out of here at 18.
How many days do you have with your kids once they're born to the time they're 18? Do you know the number?
That's 365
right
times 18.
Yes.
I know the math.
Do you have a calculator?
I have one in my phone.
Okay, I've already done the calculation.
Thank you for doing that.
I asked the rhetorical question that I knew the answer to.
Yes.
6,570 days.
Wow.
Okay, so here's what you have to think about. The moment your children are born, that number starts to tick down every single day. So you start at the top and it ticks down.
I'm feeling the pressure. Just so
you should be. You should be.
Feeling the countdown.
It's kind of like the 24 show.
Yeah.
Remember they click down every 24 hours. Okay,
Right.
So here's the thing. Let's take your kids and my kids. Let's take your oldest. Your oldest son's name's
He's 12.
Cademan.
Yes.
Just made 12 not long ago?
He just turned 12 last month.
Yes. Okay. So this is a great illustration. Cademan is 12. He's going to get wheels at 16 years old.
Maybe sooner if we can get some type of exemption.
Okay.
I'm ready for him to start driving my daughter around.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I'm ready for him to get the groceries.
Yeah.
I'm ready for him to become my DoorDash. You know what I'm saying? I want Taco Bell. Cademan, go get it.
Wow, that'd save you a lot of money, too, because I'm using DoorDash all the time. By the way, if you're not using DoorDash.
DoorDash does not sponsor this podcast, by the way.
No, it does not.
But if they want to.
But I wish they would, actually. But anyway, let's say Cademan. Let's just say 16, okay, just for example's sake.
Right.
You have 4 years with Cademan left in the house. Once he gets wheels, he's gone.
Right.
How many days do you have left? No pressure. How many days do you have left with Cademan?
If it's 4 years, the math would be 4 times 365. So I'm thinking somewhere in the, I have no idea.
Okay, good. No, that's good, though. That's good. I appreciate the honesty. 1,460 days left in the home before he's gone. Okay?
In the home or before he has a car?
I'm sorry, before he has a car.
Yeah.
But let's just say in the home.
You're giving me,
okay,
that's a lot of pressure.
Let me give you, yeah, that's a lot of pressure. Let me give you 2 more years till he's 18.
Yeah.
If he goes away for college.
Okay.
Okay. Guess how many days you have left in the home?
I'm going to add a couple more on there, maybe 4,000.
That's way too much.
Way too many.
That would be good, but you're way out of time.
Oh, boy.
You are way out of time.
Time is short.
2,180 days
That's
left.
all I have left.
That's all you have left, and he's gone. Rig, our son, he's 1 year younger than Cademan. I have, with Rig in the home, 18. Oh, no, actually, I did the math wrong. See, that's why I don't do math.
I'm not good at math either.
See,
I know
one
thing I know about math that I feel like is strong.
Tell me.
Multiplication is greater than addition.
No, that's true.
That's it.
That's true. Okay.
That's all I know.
I just know Rig is not. I got a little more time with Rig. Math is completely wrong, which is why I should have outsourced that. But the reality is we don't have time. So here's the exercise for those listening. We'll take a break. The exercise is this. Take the age of your children and try to determine how many days you have till they're 16, how many days you have until they're 18. Let's just do years.
Yeah.
You have 4 years left. Okay, before Cayman has wheels. I have 5. And once they get wheels, they're gone. You know, I mean, they're in and out the house. So we have to look at this is an opportunity and a responsibility we have as parents to invest in them before they leave.
And let's talk about what that investment looks like right after this break. Maybe you would like to disciple the people in your church and the families in your church in a way that is very intentional. One of the things we have is the Replicate Equipping Cohort. You can go online and register for this now. It's practical, next-level training with hundreds of other leaders that you can connect with that are in your context. It's over 10 hours of training in addition to the discipleship blueprint that you will get as well. And the best part, I believe, is the monthly coaching call that you get access to for 1 year. You and hundreds of other pastors in all types of contexts and locations will be able to connect together and converse and discuss the input with our whole team. They have access to our whole team. You, Tim LaFleur, myself, Gus Hernandez, Candy, as well as others who will cycle through the team to help out. You can find out more about the Replicate Equipping Cohort at replicate.org. That's replicate.org.
And here, let me say one thing about that, because this is the key. Many of you listening are saying, I have never been discipled. No one's coached me on how to make disciples and how to lead a movement of discipleship. This is the answer to the biggest obstacle in the church today, which is I've never been discipled. 65% of pastors, leaders would say I've never been discipled. This is the answer to help you with that problem. So just encourage you to go.
We've had hundreds of leaders go through it and many, many more asking. So we're opening that up. You can get into that, replicate.org, for more information about the Replicate Equipping Cohort. And we're back talking about discipling your family, discipling your kids. And really one of the things we talked about is how limited our time is and thus how intentional we should be.
Yeah.
So this year, you and I made a conscious decision. We said we are going to disciple our own children. Not that we haven't been discipling them, because that's one of the things I think that is so critical about this question. Is like, I am discipling them. I'm taking them to church. They go to their life group or their Sunday school class. I read them the Bible. We have devotions before bed. I pray with my daughter just about every night if I can. And I mean, there are things happening in our family where we're pouring into them. We're helping them read the Bible, learn all these things. But is that intentionally discipling your kids? Yeah. That's the question I'd ask myself.
Well, that's a question somebody posed to me, or that's a problem somebody posed to me. Years ago, when I was at Brainerd, I started preaching on discipleship shortly thereafter becoming a pastor. And a lady in her mid-60s came up to me and she said, I want you to answer me a question. She said, I was told years ago when I was a mother with little kids that if I could bring my kids to church and get them in Sunday school, they would follow the Lord. She said, I brought them to church every week. They went to Sunday school through high school, and both of them are far from God and have no desire to serve Him. Pastor, what happened?
Well, and the sad thing is I was in student ministry for about a decade, and through that time, there were some parents who were intentional. There were some parents who had great heart. They had a great intention, but they honestly felt like the church is here to help me disciple my kids.
Yeah.
And the reality is the church is here to equip you as a parent to disciple your kids.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like a discipleship babysitting setup. I'm going to swing them by the church. The church is going to take care of them, just like in that scenario we were talking about. And then I should come back and they should be discipled. They should be believers. And it happens in the home. It doesn't happen at the church.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing for a lot of people to pick
Well,
up.
and here's the thing. If I can just speak freely.
You can.
Okay.
This is your podcast. You can say anything you want.
Okay. Well, let me say this is couched in love, but let's be honest. Attendance does not equal a maturity. Okay?
That's right.
Just because you show up does not guarantee you're going to grow. Okay? So just because you drop your kids off to church on Wednesday night, every Wednesday night, just because they go to summer camp, just because they go to VBS, just because they go to dodgeball, whatever it is, does not guarantee that they're going to grow and mature as a Christian, okay? So here's the thing, and if I could just, again, I'm just speaking with a lot of love here. The greatest thing you can do for your kids is to put your time with them and intentionality to disciple above T-ball. Okay, I told you I was going to meddle. I told you I was going to meddle. The greatest thing you can do is to put their time with God and growing them as a disciple of Christ above travel, soccer.
Oh, boy.
Okay, band practice.
Now you're stepping into
drum lessons. Okay, I know you want them to play the piano because you want them to be wild and famous and grow up one day and be on TV, but that means nothing.
I've never heard of the wild and famous piano man, by the way.
Have you seen Rocket Man? Okay, but anyway.
I have not.
I haven't either. But anyway.
But we're imagining these wild and famous
teenagers.
Piano guys.
Yeah,
tear these keys up.
Have you seen what is
it? Mama playing my Casio.
Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis. Have you heard of Jerry Lee? But
no,
anyway,
okay, you got me on that one.
Okay, but the reality is, okay. So here's what parents say. I say, hey, Mom, are you discipling your kids? Dad, you're discipling your kids. Here's what parents say, because we wear this as a badge of honor.
Right.
What do we? You're the parent. Let's role play. Mr. Swain.
Yes.
Are you discipling your kids intentionally at home? What do you say?
Sure.
No, you say no. Sorry, let's try that again. Mr. Swain. Mr. Swain.
Okay, my bad.
Are you discipling your kids at home?
No.
Why not?
I don't have time.
Exactly. Bingo. Okay. You don't have time. So what's happening is parents, listen to me. You're trying to think, how do I fit my discipleship time with my kids into an already busy schedule with a filled up calendar?
Yes.
That is not the way you need to think. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. Go home today, go home this week with the family. Take the calendar and use a blank calendar. Wipe the calendar clean. Put times with God first as a priority, and then see what you can fit in around those times. What you're going to find, well, I know, I already gave it, but I gave you a disclaimer.
That's true.
What you're going to find is that you're going to see is traveling for the 27th baseball game this summer in Mount Juliet that much more important than developing a godly man or a godly woman who's going to be sold out to Christ and live their life for Christ the rest of their life? Do I have 4 years left to train up a Navy SEAL for Jesus? Okay, which is intense time of training and equipment. I would even say with that number, 0 to about 11 or 10. Yes, you can disciple your kids and invest in them and live out Christ before that. But the real discipleship happens, I would say, between 10 and 16 or 10 and 18. So you really only have 6 or 8 years with them when you can intentionally, or where you can intentionally disciple them to be, in a sense, a Navy SEAL.
And I would even say that some studies show that decision-making and, outlook on life is developed even before 15. Your main way that you're going to go in terms of how you're going to not necessarily believe, but the decisions you're going to make and the way you respond to others is even younger.
Well, did you hear I just heard a new study last week. It said that the personality of your children is developed before the age of 4.
Wow.
Think of the pressure of that.
Now that's pretty scary.
Golly.
You can't disciple your 3-year-old. I'll be honest.
No, you can't. But but here's the thing: they are watching you.
That's right.
And they're seeing what they can get away with, and they're emulating that kind of personality.
Well, we have a lot more to talk about on this topic because I think we need to walk through what discipling your kids looks like.
Oh yeah, we will.
And so we're going to do a part 2 to this podcast. But I do want us to just kind of wrap it up with you kind of summarizing. All the things we've talked about here is really creating that urgency about being intentional with your kids.
Yeah.
And, it's easy for us to say, hey, make baseball second, make football second, make, the honor roll second.
Good.
But what I think the challenges with parents, and as a parent I can say this, is, man, we want our kids to succeed in life.
Yeah.
And somehow mentally we've kind of made it to where, well, these are the real things that they've got to deal with.
Yeah.
And these are things that they'll just be dealing with their whole life when it comes to spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
So what is it that we can do to just maybe even an action step to say, what do we have? How do we have to shift our thinking to where we can become more intentional as disciple-making parents?
Yeah, and I would say, okay, I'm going to tell you a story, but before I do that, you got me thinking about something. And I was thinking, we are see, the reason kids, I think, one of the reasons kids today, I think the number is 68%. Is that right? 65, 68% of high school students, this is an actual fact, high school students walk away from the ministry or walk away from the church after high school. And I think one of the reasons, the people to blame are the boomers And what is our age? Gen X?
Gen X.
Yeah, we're Gen X and Boomers. The Gen X and Boomer generation basically taught our kids that football and summer league and soccer ball is more important than church activities, because here's what you're doing, Mom. Listen, by you saying we don't have to go to church, we can go travel for baseball, you're instilling in your kids what's important at a young age. Yeah. So why would they not choose football games on Sunday and night games on Saturday at the expense of coming to church? Okay, right. So that's one of the problems. But here's what got me. When I came to Long Hollow, I had a pretty busy traveling schedule with Replicate. I would speak at different events, and I love to do that. But it was the combination of traveling, and I wouldn't miss many Sundays because I would travel on my off days. So I would leave on Thursday, I would travel on Friday, I would speak either Friday or Saturday morning, fly back Saturday night, preach on Sunday, and then I would do that again. I did that multiple times throughout the year, and I could do that in a sense because my boys were young. So when Rig and Ryder were little, I would leave the home, and they would stand at the door, and they would say, "Daddy, bring me back a toy. Bring me back a toy." And they'd call me on the phone. "Don't forget the toy." When Rig hit 8 or 9, he stopped saying, "Bring me back a toy." Guess what he started saying?
"You come back.
I want you back."
Yeah.
I want you to come back, okay? So that was part of it. A friend of mine, Jimmy Scroggins, who's a pastor in Florida, came to preach for me at Long Hollow. I was in town. I hung out with Jimmy after church, and I asked him this question. We were eating lunch, and I said, "Jimmy, you're an amazing speaker. God has gifted you to preach and teach. I don't see that you travel much. Like, you don't travel and preach much. Why?" And his response was, "Because I have too many kids." I think Jimmy has like 9 kids, 7 or 9 kids. I think it's 9.
Yeah.
And Jimmy says, "God has called me first to be a father before he's called to be a preacher, traveling preacher." And I was pretty convicted about that, but Jimmy continued.
Uh-oh.
He said,
"You'd had enough," but he offered a little more.
It was unsolicited, but he kept going. And he said, "Robby," he said, "I want you to look at those 2 boys over there." He said, "You're right now, people want you to come speak. People want you to travel. People want you for their agenda. They're going to hire you for their event to come help their event be better." He said, "They like you now, but one day they won't. One day you're going to fizzle out, and then there'll be the next thing that comes along." He says, "But I want you to look at those 2 boys, 10 and 8. They're going to love you the rest of your life. When you're in a nursing home, they're going to come see you. When you're in the hospital, they're going to come see you. When your life falls apart, when all the rest have forgotten you, they'll come see you." So I was still pretty, convicted about it, but Jimmy wasn't done.
There was a third layer.
There was a third layer. Apparently, I'm a slow learner. So Jimmy walks over to the couch before we leave. He calls the 2 boys together. Up to this point, they were flipping and jumping and fighting and Nerf wars.
I've seen that before.
Which is typical Gallaty home. Okay. But at this time, by God's grace, they're locked in. Jimmy gets on his knees, and he says, "Boys, Pastor Jimmy wants to tell you something." I'm standing behind Jimmy over his shoulder. And Jimmy looks at the boys, and he says, "Let me tell you something. You see this man right here? He travels a lot. He speaks. He's written books, and people want to hear from him, and he's got a church that he's ministering to. But none of that means anything compared to his love for you." And here's what he said to Rig and Ryder. He said, "This man right here loves you 2 more than anything in this world. He wants the best for you more than anything." So what am I doing? I'm starting to tear up. Like, it's like an emotional God time. So I'm starting to tear up in the back, trying to wipe tears. And so Jimmy leaves, and it affected me. And here's what I realized. What good is it if I win in the ministry of the church and lose in the ministry of my home? A lot of pastors, a lot of leaders listening right now, you are winning outside the home, and you are losing in the home. And here's the reality. You still lose. You can lose your church, and you'll still have your family. Watch this. If you lose your family, you lose both.
Wow. That's a good word, and I might add, poignant. That's the definition. That story is the definition.
It's come full circle. I like that.
So if you enjoyed the podcast today, do us a favor, share it with your friends, and give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts.